Good day, class. Welcome to RES 11, Methods of Research. We are still here at Unit 2, and now we are at Part 2, which is on writing Chapter 1 of your proposal. This is what you need to accomplish after your nerd-racking topic defense. I hope you enjoyed that. Now that you already have a working research title, we are now ready to start writing. Remember that this research problem must be the research problem that the panel already decided for you to work on. We'll start with looking at the parts of chapter 1, then looking at the importance of each part and how to write each part. So, what is a research introduction? Introduction is your chapter 1, which consists of 8 parts. So you will see here, you have background of the study, statement of the objectives, statement of hypothesis, conceptual framework, research paradigm, scope and the limitations of the study, significance of the study, and the definition of terms. So the whole of the research proposal actually consists of 3 chapters. And this first chapter, I must say, is the hardest to write. I've attached an editable sample research paper in our Lens course so that formatting is less of a problem to you and you can focus on writing. This chapter contains the background of the study, which is the first one, 1.1, which sets the stage for the entire study through establishing the research problem. So, just like reading an all-time favorite book, the first few pages are important to catch the reader's attention and interest. This is the part where you will encourage or discourage your reader to read the whole chapter. I don't know for you, but for me, whenever I start to read a book, if the first page does not entice me or excite me or interest me, I will not read the succeeding pages. So your goal here is to convince the reader of the need to do the research. That is why this part should be written intricately. And you need to convince the reader at the first line and at your first paragraph that there is an immediate need to do the research. Remember that first impression lasts. And the importance of this part is you tell the readers that there is a need to do this study. So now, how do we write this part? I am fully aware that there are lots of you that are good at writing and that there are some, like myself before, who's really struggling when it comes to writing. But as time went by, I understood that writing's easy when you know what to do. And yes, there are several techniques in doing this. First is you select the best format in presenting your background of study. So I have here 4 techniques in writing or presenting your background of the study: the 4 elements model, the inverted pyramid approach, the deficiencies model, and the T.I.O.C approach. So the first is the 4 elements model. I've learned this technique from Direct Julius, and I just made up the name just to make it at par with the other models. So you have here 4 elements: the known, the unknown, despite, and hence. So this is an example. Known meaning you tell us what about your topic. I think in 1 or 2 sentences. For example, here I'm talking about chemistry teaching learning process. What is chemistry teaching learning process? And then what is known about chemistry teaching process at that time? What is known about the gaps for the chemistry teaching learning process? So, and then why is there a problem? That's the unknown. And then we here put here despite, for example, however, in the Philippines, even with all the technical innovations in the country, analytical chemistry is still being taught traditionally. So it seems like despite all the advances, teaching analytical chemistry is still being taught traditionally. And then we have here, hence, so because of this issue, or in light of this issue, this study aims to determine the effects of inquiry demonstration on students' conceptual understanding and attitude. So this is the hence. So you have the known, you have the unknown, despite all other advances, and hence you are doing the research. So this is a short one because it's already in the publishable form. But for a research thesis, it's a little longer. So the next technique is the inverted pyramid approach. This is called the deductive approach because it's from general to specific. So it's from the rationale of the study and the reason why you chose the study. So this is one of the mainstay techniques used in journalism. So if some of you has been joining journalism, you already know this technique. So the inverted pyramid approach or general to specific approach is a more detailed and doable. So your first step here is contextualization. So contextualization of the situation or phenomenon. So you provide details about the investigated event. So a simple way to do this is applying the 5 Ws and 1 H for technical writing approach. So that is still your what, when, where, who, when, and then the how. And you will not miss essential information using the method as you address the what, when, where, who, why, and how questions. And but at this part, you make it as brief as you can. So actually, this is the part where you tell us the known if you compare it with the four element model. So this is the contextualization. So conceptualize based on the issue or concern at hand that you have introduced in the contextualization stage. So you conceptualize or conceptualization is pointing out the gap in the knowledge. So conceptualization is a product of reflective and analytical thinking. And thinking is best done when you have gained a lot of experience with the phenomenon that you are trying to understand. So the primary purpose at this stage is to point out the gap in knowledge about the event in question. So why are you doing this? What's the gap? What's the problem? So further, notice that as you figure out the specific items in your study, there are many unknowns. So that is where the unknown goes, and you realize the limits of the mind. So many questions start to crop up in your head, and there are many other essential things to know. So that's when you go to this last part of this inverted pyramid approach, the resolution stage. And the last stage is an attempt at resolution, meaning after formulating your hypothesis to explain the phenomenon, how will you go about it? What will you do? So this is actually the hence part. So again, for the inverted pyramid approach, you have from general to specific. This is deductive. And what you will do is contextualization, conceptualization, and resolving. If you compare this with the 4 element approach, contextualization is looking at the known, conceptualization is looking at the unknown, resolving is the part for despite and hence. So this is an example of your inverted pyramid approach. So again, it's from general like this. It's looking at the microbial infection diseases first, and then it talk about the whole of the antimicrobial properties of um, compounds or herbs that you have, and that they can serve as therapeutic agents. And then they talk about the specific ones, which is the taho or the fiddlehead fern. So from general background information by providing the basics. So if you remember, you will define your variables also in this part. You will if this is social study or more on public health studies, you will put here the facts, the statistics, the legal basis, previous findings, and for the specific, the reason for conducting the research. Okay, so this is a continuation of the example for the inverted pyramid approach. So next is the deficiencies model. And according to Creswell, the background of the study consists of five parts. And we take the sample proposal I posted in our course as an example or your first activity last time on the papaiti or mulubo oppositophilia lili. Um, P for as anti-hyperglycemic agent. So introduce the problem first. Use the first part is the research problem. And then next is the studies that have addressed the problem. And then the deficiencies in the studies or what you call the unknown of the studies, what's unknown. And then the importance of the study for an audience and the purpose statement. So, okay. So here you will see an example of the deficiencies model. So it still looks similar to your four elements model. It's still there. So you have here some on the first part is the um actually on the it's not arranged, but the research problem here is here at this part, and also the studies that have addressed the problems. This is where the importance of the study goes. And this is the purpose of the study. So the research problem here is that there are several drugs for hyperglycemia, and we are now looking for um, other ways of lowering blood glucose levels because hyperglycemia or elevated blood glucose is associated with morbidity and mortality. That's the research problem. Studies that have addressed the problem. Still a research problem. Here you will see the examples of the uh, statistics that you need to put under a background of the study. You will see here that the number of cases of diabetes, which is currently at 171 million, is predicted to reach 366 million by the end of 2030. And in the Philippines, the World Health Organization in the year 2016 has surveyed a total of 5.8% prevalence of diabetes mellitus in 101 million population with a lower middle income group. That's the problem. And then studies that have addressed the problem. So you can put here about the mainstay drugs for hyperglycemia, and then the deficiencies in the study. So there are several drugs for hyperglycemia, but then there are people who dislike taking drugs or taking buying some drugs, monetary problem. So you give herbal alternative in a form that Doesn't seem like you're drinking medicine, so in a tea form. So this is the purpose of the study. Hence, this study aims to formulate spray dried and tea bag forms of the oligoophosphathilia as well as determine its hypoglycemic effect on the blood glucose level of alloxan-induced hyperglycemic sprague rats. So the deficiencies model need not to be organized in step-by-step form. This is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But normally the purpose statement is at the last part. So if you uh this could also be compared to your four element model. You have here the known, the studies that have addressed the problems, the research problem, deficiencies in the studies is the unknown, importance of the study and purpose of the study is already the hence part. And the last approach is the T.I.O.C approach, the trends, issues, objectives, and contributions. So this highlights the trends, the current situation. So you need to use updated reference and citations. Normally, we peg it to at least 5 years to make it current or to look at the trends. So you have here the issues, which are the blind spots of usual problems, and the objectives and the contributions here is the significance. So an example is for this study, heavy metals concentration of roadside soil and plants in Tuguegarao City, Cagayan Valley, Philippines. So this is the first paper that I was able to publish. You can see this at Research Key. We will look at the article to see the trends, the issues, objectives, and contributions. So you see here, I talk about the trends, what is happening. So there's environmental degradation resulting from human activities, which became a source of concern in rural and urban areas. So paramount among these environmental challenges is heavy metal pollution. So it talked about here about heavy metals and then the issues. Heavy metals occur naturally in the ecosystem, but have a varied toxicity and act as biological hazards even at low levels. That is the issue. And although heavy metals are essential for proper functioning of the body system, this is still the issue. Bioaccumulation at high concentration may pose a threat to humans. So that is the problem. The objective would be at the this part, still you see here the despite word. Here, the objective is actually what you want to do. So uh, at this part. However, very few studies have been carried out in developing countries such as Philippines, and data on pollutant metal concentrations and distribution in such areas like Tuguegarao City are extremely scarce. And therefore, this study was initiated to act as a baseline to assess the level of contamination of some heavy metals, lead, cadmium, copper, and zinc, to assess if their levels are sufficient to pollute the surface roadside soil and plant along a major highway. So that would be objective and also the contribution. So they will look at if the levels are sufficient to pollute the surface roadside soil and plants and along a major highway. Okay, so that's the four techniques, the four element approach, the inverted pyramid approach, the these uh, deficiencies models, and the T.I.O.C approach. So after choosing the best format for you, you can choose either of the four, but my favorite is the first one, the four element models. Next is you need to read, read, and read. So from our previous PowerPoint video, I shared this technique on how to read. So since your research problem is from one of your group members, you can ask him or her to share his or her template to the group. So assume that there are 20 entries here again. So as a refresher, you need to read or review articles to get a sense of the current state of the field. And tips on reading an article, you get it from journals. You use keywords and you filter it for the last 5 years. You can use Google Scholar, you can use PubMed, you can use Jane. So read the abstract, and normally the abstract already has the introduction there and the conclusion. So again, I cannot stress this much, but be organized. Use a template when you gather enough reference on your topic. So check if all the elements needed for your introduction is there already. For example, in this study, the gaps are shown, and this can be written in the despite in the four element model. In the deficiencies model, this is the deficiency, and the gaps in the inverted pyramid, and the issues in the T.I.O.C approach. It is best for the group to add 10 more entries in this template to be able to contextualize well your background of the study. So after reading, reading, and reading, you need to write. So don't be anxious at this part. Don't worry with copy paste first, but make sure you put a citation so that you won't forget where you got the information. And we will deal with the copy paste later. So first is you choose a technique. You fill in the data needed in that technique. So you use a template so that it's easy for you. You won't get fuzzy and confused on what you are writing. And then you paraphrase when you fill out the template already, and then you cite, and then you rewrite again. After writing, actually, you will be rewriting and rewriting and so on. So this is an example. I chose the deficiencies model here. So you choose your own technique, but I want you to try to insert the elements of the background of the study in the table. So in the deficiencies technique, we have the research problem, the studies that have addressed the problem, the deficiencies in the study, the importance of the study for an audience, and the purpose statement. So you may actually edit the table depending on which technique the group chose to adapt. So for example, here, the research problem is during the COVID-19 pandemic this 2020, most universities in the Philippines were forced to switch to an online teaching modality. And the study that have addressed the problem, faced with this transition of online teaching modality, the course faculty contemplated various continuity options for the laboratories, ranging from canceling laboratories altogether to hosting virtual computer-based laboratories to having the instructors perform experiments on videos and students analyzing data at home. So first, I posed the research problem that we switch to an online teaching modality. And studies that have addressed the problem, there are those who contemplated various options for laboratories for online teaching modality. They did not do any laboratory. They did virtual computer laboratory and experiments on videos and students analyzing at home. So what is the problem if there's already these studies that have addressed the problem? So here, deficiencies in the study and inherent limitations of video classes, which do not adequately substitute for practical learning in chemistry laboratories. So doing chemistry laboratory online and face to face is different. So that's the gap. During the emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic, The authors have confirmed that in order to provide undergraduates with practical lab experience, they need to be physically in the lab. So that is the gap. They need to be physically in the lab. And what will be the importance of the study for your audience? So laboratory work is essential and integral in undergraduate chemistry courses, and the laboratory provides a setting for training not only for practical hand and instrument skills, but also for many of the thinking, planning, recording. So importance is we want still to do laboratory work even if we don't do it face to face. So the purpose of the study, toward this purpose, this study aims to develop and assess a laboratory at home module that covers concepts in biochemistry. So what I want to do is make a laboratory at home module that will still be um, at par or same as doing laboratory work face to face in terms of um, student achievement, attitude, confidence in lab skills, and motivation in chemistry laboratory. So this is an example of the deficiencies model, but you don't rely from one um, source only. You will see here I have one, two, but actually there's a lot more sources that I've read before I completed the deficiencies model. So next is how do you paraphrase? So you have lots of tools that can help you. So you can use this paraphrasing tool and paraphrasing tool Killbot AR. So this is a nice tool for paraphrasing. Paraphrasing, even if you paraphrase a sentence from an article, you still need to cite where you got it. So even if you paraphrase it, you still need to cite, especially if there are statistics or according to or facts that needs to have a citation. Next is how do you do in-text citation? So this is the normal error of students. So since we are using APA format here, you need to include an in-text citation when you refer to summarize, paraphrase, or quote from another source. So for every in-text citation in your paper, there must be a corresponding entry in your reference list. So APA in-text citation style uses the author's last name and the year of publication. For example, here, Derwing et al. Is with other the authors and the year it was published. And here, Thomas is the last name of the author, comma. He's a sole author, so mag-isa lang siya. And the year his paper was submitted or published. So here you will see for a single sentence, the writer source is from two different articles, which means that they are telling the same thing about a linguistics field or linguistics field. So you see here, when you have this, you need to write already the reference. Yes. So this is the part where you will put still in APA format. So here, Derwing et al. Here is Derwing, and then the name, middle, first name initial, middle name initial, and then the co-authors, the year, then title of the uh study, the journal where it is published, the volume, the issue, and the pages. So this is when it is from a journal article. But it's when, for example, this one, an unpublished paper of Thomas. So you will see here that the title of the doctoral dissertation is the one in italics. So it is written here. It's a doctoral dissertation. So there are different ways. For example, you are looking at articles or web pages. I will be sending a link on how you will put in references. For example, you will get a master's thesis from a journal article, from a news page, the differences for the references or writing the references. So another frequently asked question is how long should the background of the study be? So how many pages? So actually it depends on the technique used for as long as all the elements are there. Usually it's 1 to 2 pages or 3 to 5 paragraphs. So how many citations should be there? So do not flood with your background of the study with research citations because this is not a review of literature. The full discussion about the parts of your background of the study will also be discussed at the review of literature, and that is where you will be citing all of them. But for the background of the study, you will only cite the most relevant ones or only the relevant ones. Next is how many should I write before I write? How many should I read rather before I write? So you should have read before writing and you should have read enough recent literatures. So you will see in the flow of research writing or proposal that you need to read review of literatures, review of related literatures first before even writing anything. So enough recent literatures because this is your background of the study is like an executive summary of or synthesis of your review of literature. So you should have read enough recent literatures before you have written anything. So for public health research tip that you need to have the skill on looking at the data, especially for diseases before um, 2023. So at 2022, what is the status for diabetes? If you compare it for 10 years back, so if normally we're having a hard time searching for data about our statistics on the current number of cases, especially like globally, how many, and then nationally in the Philippines, how many children are affected, how many adults, how many female, how many male. So in for GBD compare, using this link, you'll be able to write down the those statistics. So I'll have a special topic PowerPoint video or a tutorial on how you will be navigating or using your GBD compare. So for your activity 2.2, which is also a group work, you need to formulate an appropriate background of the study for your paper. So remember that at this part of your course, um, activities will be done by group. So now considering your research problem, you need to formulate an appropriate background of the study for your paper. So in summary, we talked about what are the parts of chapter 1, what is the importance of the background of the study, how do we write the background of the study. So that's it for writing your background of the study. Thanks for watching.